And good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of JMU Sound Off. I am Jonathan McNamara, coming to you, as always, from Richmond, Virginia. Our recap episode after the Duke's 41-13 win over Georgia Southern, pushing them to 6-0 now on the season, the lone unbeaten team in the Sun Belt Conference, and putting them towards the top of the group of five. Many of the rankings coming in around the number 26 number today in the AP poll. So a big week for James Madison, and we get set for the Thursday night matchup against Marshall. We'll talk about that tonight. We've got a really big show for you tonight. A great list of guests, including the voice of JMU football, Dave Riggert. Also have Cliff Wood on from the Montpelier Collective, and then we have a really cool story about Danny Burdette and his son Chase, who had their first experience at a JMU game yesterday. You're going to want to hear that story. But before we bring in the other members of our team, we just want to say, as always, thank you to our sponsors at Skyline Financial Partners. Got a chance to see Tim Nelson yesterday, and his fraternity brother joined us on a post-game live recap, just talking about his thoughts on the JMU win. But we're very appreciative of Skyline Financial. You can visit their site and learn more about this JMU company at skylinefinancialpartners.com. And Cliff Wood and the Montpelier Collective, we're going to have a discussion with them later, mid-season recap on their efforts to help support student athletes at JMU. But as always, to learn more about the collective, montpeliercollective.com. And of course, you can follow them on their social media channels, posting updates on a regular basis about the work of the collective. And with that, we will bring in the other members of our Sound Off team. Steve Brown, Taylor Adkins, got a chance to see both of you yesterday. Before we get into the game recap, we do want to say, why is Michael Evangelista not on set today? Michael got engaged yesterday to his fiance now, Courtney, and right off the top of the episode, we just want to say congratulations to them. If you follow Michael on social media, you can see some of the pictures from yesterday's event, but just an awesome moment for a awesome JMU fan, but also just a better person you're ever going to find in the JMU landscape. And Courtney, for those who know her, welcome to the JMU family officially. We're really excited for you guys. And with that, Stephen Taylor, statement win yesterday for the Dukes. So much that we can talk to tonight about what went down yesterday. Steve, we talked prior to the game, did a little pregame thing with Noah Frary from the Frary and Smith podcast. I want to say right off the top of the bat, thank you to Noah Frary for giving us a little bit of time yesterday. Steve, you thought it'd be an 11-point win. I'm not sure anybody in this broadcast expected what we saw yesterday.
No, but I hope that Georgia Southern enjoyed their suite in the Smackdown Hotel, because that's exactly where they belonged. We beat the hell out of Southern. So I don't want to hear that hail Southern crap again, because next time I hear it, you're going to hear you just got your ass kicked. That was a beatdown I did not expect. I really thought they would score 30, 34. Exactly is where I thought they'd be. I thought we'd be at 48. Kind of in that neighborhood. I know that's not 11 when you do the math, but I thought we'd win by close to 2 scores, but I was pleasantly surprised at how well we played, and was shocked at how, not that they played poorly. That's a good team. I don't want anybody to think that's a bad team. That's there's 2 guys on that team, Burgess and Caleb Hood. You'll see both of those guys play on Sundays in the NFL. That's great talent. Davis Brin may have a shot to play as well. He's a really good quarterback. Our defense marginalized those guys, and they were done. They were done in the first quarter, and you could see it on their faces. So I'll leave it at that. I know we got a lot more to talk about, but I'll let Taylor jump in.
Yeah. So Taylor, before we get into the game, I know one thing that you're always focused on, and we've talked on every one of these episodes, is the game day atmosphere at Bridgeport. There were a lot of questions going into this game. Is what would we see? There was concerns about the weather. I know driving up from Richmond as early as I left, it was a rainy, foggy drive over Afton Mountain. Fans, maybe a late arriving crowd into Bridgeport Stadium. But right off the bat, we called out on Twitter in the first quarter, the students showed up in a big way, which is really impressive considering it was fall break week at JMU. We didn't know what their turnout would be. But again, a really great crowd, over 25,000 on hand at Bridgeport Stadium, a crowd that stayed engaged well into the third quarter until the game got out of hand and the result was in question. Then we saw some people leave. But at least from my perspective, one of the better crowds. I knew we were sitting together in section 109, and I saw the steady improvement continuing up in terms of the music again. One point that we put out that we thought was just really great to see the student reaction was to the Taylor Swift kind of sing along thing. And once again, we say people may minimize the importance of that, but what about the reaction from the students, and just another great job by the JMU game day staff to make the atmosphere inside Bridgeport one that was great, but also really key in a game that I know Kurt Signetti mentioned, some of the other players mentioned in their post-game remarks, made a big difference in this game in terms of setting the atmosphere against a great opponent towards Georgia Southern.
It was a great atmosphere from start to finish. I think it's important to, we mentioned the students, it's important to highlight the impact that I think they had. They were there early. They were also all in white. And I think it's also important to note that there were no free white t-shirts given out to students. I mean, there may be some given on campus this week, but there were no free t-shirts. All the white was on the students' own accord. There wasn't really a game specific shirt even being sold for this game. So those students, they heard the call, they whited out, they showed up early. They stayed, I mean, through the middle of the fourth quarter, it started to empty out, but who could blame them? I mean, the game was well over. They were engaged, they were loud. It's really important to make note of just how important and impactful the students were in this game. And you saw some of the comments from our team coming out of the half, the reputation of coming out flat in the second half. They didn't this week. And I think a big part of that was running out of the locker room and seeing full stands as they came out.
And now turning our attention to the game, starting on the offensive side of the ball, there were a lot of questions going into this game about the play of the quarterback position for JMU. Curt Cignetti was very consistent in his comments on multiple opportunities, really saying that he needed more from the position. Steve, wants to go to you. Jordan McLeod yesterday put in, at least in my opinion, his best performance as a JMU Duke. 20 of 31, 259 yards passing, 3 touchdowns through the air. Also made some great plays in the with his legs throughout yesterday's contest, and it just shows his growth and progression. That was one of the things we mentioned in kind of the preseason, and I know something you've made mention of on multiple occasions. He's not a quarterback who's played a lot of games over the last couple of seasons, so seeing that natural progression is something that's really kind of exciting if you're a fan of JMU football, considering we don't really know what the ceiling is for Jordan, and that steady progression, that steady growth was on full display yesterday in a big way. Just your thoughts on his performance.
I thought it was outstanding. That's his 5th game. So he didn't play for almost 2 years, and that's his 5th full game. And we've got 6 more to go. And he's only gotten better. If you look at where he was at the UVA game, which I thought was still a wonderful performance, especially in the fourth quarter, it was an unbelievable performance. He played just like he did yesterday. Look at the progression from there to Troy, to Utah State, and on and into South Alabama. Couple of good things I saw that he did yesterday, and I'm not going to get critical. There's a couple things he missed. He knows that. You saw him yesterday motion to himself. If you watch the replay of the game, which I've watched now 3 times, you'll see that. I mean, he owned it. He underthrew a couple guys. There was a touchdown to KB that we easily could have had. There was a couple in there where he did some of those throws, but honestly, for the most part, I'm not going to grade him out because it's not my job to do it. I'm sure when Tino and Coach Cignetti and Shanahan do it, it'll be good. But, at the end of the day, I thought in the very first series, I'll give you a couple things. Play 9 of the first series. I know this is sounding nerdy because I charted the plays for the first 3 quarters. 4th and 2 on the 27. KB had a huge block. The O-line picked up the blitz. Jordan moved the pocket. He moved in the pocket to the left and hit Reggie for the first down. We haven't seen that type of movement. Play 10 was the play fake to Sproles. Sproles went out on the same thing that he did at UVA. He play faked to Sproles, froze the other players from Georgia Southern, and there was Surratt wide open for a touchdown. That's the first series. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, this guy's comfortable. And he looked very comfortable all day. He's going to roll into Marshall, I think, extremely comfortable. Loved the post-game comments. When you heard Kalon talk about him, was great. The defense, hit it. I know this is a Jordan thing, so I'll hit one more Jordan on. If you hit JMU's second series, first half, he hit Surratt on play 1 on a small rollout. Jordan goes to the right on a rollout. They rolled him out. This is the first time I've seen them roll him out. 26-yard gain. The pass to Surratt on play 5 was too low. The third down pass to Kalon was the touchdown. Right between the 2 linebackers. If you watch that replay, that's an NFL pro throw. That's an unbelievable throw that he threads right between those guys. And I looked at it and I was like, oh my God. You look at, there's one more thing I'll give you. The screen, JMU's 3rd offensive series, play 2, screen pass to Sproles. Great blocking. Play 6, the bunch formation. Surratt went over the middle. Jordan stood in there, made the throw, got hit. Play 11, Black was wide open. He underthrew him a little bit. No TD on that one, but so what? So there's more of these I can give you, but I want Taylor to talk. But, I thought he played a phenomenal game. He is a candidate right now for Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year. And if he continues on this streak for the next 6 games, he should win that. I know we've got the guy at Texas State. He's doing well. Didn't do as well yesterday. You go like I think this team's going to go, and I'm not going to say it because I don't want to jinx it, because we just need to win on Thursday night. That's all I'm going to talk about. But bottom line is he continues on this upward trajectory, and it's a huge upward trajectory. And I want to give some kudos to the coaching staff, all of them. But I'm going to single out Tino. Tino is in his ear in a very positive way, and so is Coach Signetti. If you saw some of the plays yesterday where he missed Kalon on that touchdown, Signetti was pissed. You could see it. He didn't let Jordan see it. When Jordan came over, he took him under his arm and just calmly talked to him. And Jordan owned it, was fine. Tino talked to him. It was a wonderful example of coaching that you just don't see a lot of. You usually see people get ripped into. That's not what happened. And it's because I think they trust him, and they should. He's guiding this team, and he's really guiding it well.
Well, a couple last points on Jordan. First of all, was able to get 6 different wide receivers a catch yesterday. So showed his distribution of the football was really good. Allowed Elijah Surratt to have a great day. 5 receptions for 105 yards and a touchdown. So his growth and trajectory has continued to improve. As Signetti has mentioned on multiple points, he's a gamer. When the lights are bright, tends to have his big performance. But of note, I'm glad you mentioned some of the misses in the game, because I thought one of the things that I really found myself being pretty impressed was the first time we got to see Jordan, first of all, in a post-game media scrum. So getting a chance to hear from him was something I really enjoyed. But he talked about the fact that during the week, he had an opportunity to throw a pass to Kalon Black in practice that Kalon missed. And he said that he gave him a hard time. And it was an illustration of just how a play in practice that they missed was still on their minds in the post game for a game they just won in the big fashion. And I saw Kalon Black in his post game comments called Jordan his guy. Talked about how upset and how frustrated he was that he missed that catch, because he knew that he had an opportunity to get another touchdown, maybe even 2, considering the possibilities in that game. And I just think it shows the growing dynamic, the relationship that has grown between those players and many more on this roster. I know Phoenix Sproles has commented about his relationship with Jordan. So really great to see him continue to grow in this leadership role. Taylor, want to pivot to you just on the defensive side of the football. I know you're somebody who has really watched him, because we're close down in section 109, could see that dynamic between the defensive line and Coach Pat Kuntz. That relationship was on full display yesterday, and it was key because one of the big storylines going into this game was how would that defensive line for JMU deal with Davis Brin, and could they get pressure on him? And they answered that in a big way, and we saw that on full display. And then James Carpenter obviously has his one pass deflection, gets the big interception. Just your thoughts on the play of the defensive line and the secondary, which continues to progress. And I know you have a stat that you want to highlight as part of your comments.
Yeah, that was the number 9 ranked passing offense in the country. And our defensive line continued to get pressure on that quarterback. That's a really good quarterback. Early in the game, just watching how he managed the game and how he was able to focus on his receivers downfield while trying to maneuver our defensive line and the pressure that they were getting on him, it was impressive. And so we handled and put in check a very good quarterback, a great offense. And it was their passing offense that, again, was top 10 in the nation, going against what statistically was one of the weaker pass defenses in the country in JMU. And we showed up, we performed. Our defensive line, I think James Carpenter, in addition to that interception that he tipped up and caught, he smacked another one down on the goal line when they were backed up in their own goal line.
Huge play. He should have picked it. He should have picked it. It hit him in the elbow.
It just, and what was funny, this is kind of going off topic a little bit, but there was a poll that one of the national social media profiles put out there, and it was like, who's the best G5 team? Is it Tulane or James Madison? And I saw there was some Tulane account that came in and said, James Madison's defensive line could not handle Tulane. And the only thing I could think to respond was, tell me you've never watched a JMU football game without telling me you've never watched a JMU football game. We continue to be the most dominating rush defense in the country. We continue to be a defense that puts pressure on quarterbacks regardless of how well the offensive line is. And going back to the secondary, so I mentioned after our South Alabama game that the yards per completion that started out at UVA at about 19 yards per completion went down to 13 and 14 yards at Troy and Utah State, and had gotten down to 10.6 yards per completion in South Alabama. Yesterday, they continued to follow that trend, 8.7 yards per completion against the number 9 ranked pass offense in the country. I think that's something to be celebrated. And real quick, before I move on back to y'all, I do want to highlight something about the offense and some of the conversations about Jordan McLeod. We knew he was one of the best athletes on the team going into this season. We knew he was one of the most veteran players coming into the season. The question was, did he have the ability to be the leader this team needed at that position, and could he become a proficient game manager? And yesterday, not only has he been trending in this direction all year, but yesterday you saw from start to finish, you saw a veteran quarterback who was an incredible athlete, who managed that game and was leading that team to arguably, I mean, that was not only a great victory yesterday, that we talked about going into that game was going to be one of the biggest regular season home games ever in JMU football history. And only because of that score, I think 5-10 years from now, it might not be the game that we think about because it was such a blowout, kind of like the Sam Houston playoff game a couple of years ago, that going into it was going to be one of the biggest games. And we just don't think about it because of how well we performed. But I think it's worth noting that is one of the best regular season matchups we've ever had in Bridgeforth Stadium, and we dominated. And kudos to Jordan McLeod, because one other thing I think that's worth noting, and we might put this up on our social media accounts later, if you go through and compare Todd Centeo's stats from last year and Jordan McLeod's stats this year, and I say this with all due respect because I think Todd Centeo is one of the greatest not only quarterbacks but players to ever put on a JMU uniform. Jordan McLeod's stats mirror almost every one of Todd's stats, and the ones where they go head-to-head, Jordan has the edge. So you can't tell everything on paper, but statistically, Jordan McLeod is performing at a level that we've seen the quarterbacks in the last 5 or 6 years play at JMU. So kudos to the offense, kudos to the defense. That was an all-around dominating win.
And then, Steve, you want to make a comment real quick on the defensive side, but again, the offensive line, allowing Jordan to do what he did, allowing Kalen to have their day when we've had injuries, especially losing our left tackle. One of those players that's kind of a foundational, institutional part of this offense, and we have not only not lost a beat, we're improving. So again, just pointing to the coaching staff's ability to get the most out of the talent that is on this roster, and you're seeing it play out in a big way. Steve, your comments.
Well, a couple things. I mean, one, I liked that Jordan owned his mistakes, and I'll equate this to a 5-set tennis match. If you watch tennis on a pro level, he had probably 6 unforced errors in five sets. So in the entire game, if you look back on it, I'm sure he made other mistakes, and I'm sure the coaches will find something else. But at the end of the day, that's it. And on the Tulane side, hey, Tulane, I'll put something out here for you. We don't have a game on December the 9th. So there's a Walmart parking lot in Harrisonburg. We'll stripe it off. And if you want to come on up here, I'll fly you up. I'll pay for your flight to come up here, and we'll beat you in the Walmart parking lot, and then we'll take you to your New York 6 spot. So if you really think you can take our guys on, come on up. But I'll tell you what, let me give you some defensive stuff. Here's where I think the entire game fell apart for them. They went into the half, and this is the first series for Georgia Southern. Play 2 of the first series, they tried a jet sweep. Crumma smashed that kid. I'm not sure that kid came back in the game. He might have. And then play 4, that same thing. Jalen Green was in Bren's face, and it got Bren nervous, and that's when he started making overthrows. So that's the first series they had, and they couldn't score. And that really broke them. At that point, it was over. But that's all I'll say. I mean, I didn't want to make too many points on the defense because Taylor did such a great job, but I want to at least throw that out there.
Yeah, and then I just want to call out one more player before we move on. But Chauncey Logan had himself a day for JMU. I mean, we all knew the potential was there. Has 11 tackles, gets an interception. Chris Chegowinski also gets an interception for the Dukes defense, but just something that really, Davis Brin, 31 of 52, 271, no touchdowns through the air. I don't think there was a fan in JMU world that we've been called homers. There are other homers out there that are always going to say good things are happening. I don't think anybody, at least I didn't see on any social media or any forums, anybody saying that we would hold Davis Brin to no touchdowns through the air.
And Chauncey said after what happened last year that he had this game circled, three times on his calendar. Yeah. So kudos to Chauncey, another Southwest Virginia product, Salem, Virginia, right outside of Botetourt. Just want to make that note real quick. But yeah, Carpenter, Chauncey, Southwest Virginia, down here in Botetourt. That's what we do.
And again, another great performance from our punter, A great performance from our field goal kicker again. Special teams in a game like this make it minimized because of the score, but we continue to see consistency from those units. And that's something that there were a lot of, again, people forget that there were question marks about the place kicker position.
Yeah.
And last year there were some early struggles, but since those early struggles has been a continued upward trajectory, and now no one's even thinking about field goals. When he comes on for field goals and extra points, it feels automatic, and that's big because I still believe that there are going to be opportunities. We're going to need him in those big moments down the road. Some of these kicks have looked routine, and they're not routine. We saw kicks today. Look at some of the games, even the NFL, where kickers are missing some big kicks. Look at the Browns 49ers game. Look at some of the others that happened throughout the big game out in Pacific Northwest yesterday. Kickers are missing kicks, not with JMU. So kudos to the special teams units. They're a group that don't always get the attention they deserve. So we're going to have more on this game when we bring on Dave Riggert and Cliff later in the show. But we did want to get to our first guest on the episode. And one thing you've heard us talk about on Sound Off is that we believed that JMU now being an FBS, we've all heard the anecdotes that maybe somebody who lives in your neighborhood or somebody you work with or somebody your kids go to school with who's been a JMU grad, who's maybe been a little bit disconnected to the program or not as passionately into it when we were in our FCS days, who are now either buying season tickets or becoming more of a passionate fan on a week-in basis. But we've also said that we believe that there would be growth in the fan base in the Shenandoah Valley, in the Harrisonburg community, and the broader community as well. And Taylor and I yesterday being in section 109, and Taylor, I'll let you do the introduction before I bring Chase and Danny in. Because I have to give full marks to Taylor for finding this story. Tell us a little bit about our guests, and then we'll bring them in.
So we had some guests that had bought tickets in 109, the best section in Bridgeforth Stadium. And at some point, they're just having a great time. It's a dad and his son, and they turn around, and at some point they say, "This is our first game at JMU." And I said, "Oh, since the stadium's been built? No, first time ever." I said, "Oh, sir, are you an alum?" No. I said, "What's the connection?" And he said, "Man, my son, he just turned 9 years old, has really started getting into college football. We've driven by JMU Stadium, and he's just been tuning into JMU the last 2 years. They've been dominating." And he just said, we just love JMU, so we wanted to take him to a JMU football game. So, absolutely no connection to the school, just wanted to experience a game day in Harrisonburg. And so after that, we got to know him, became friends during the football game, and we said, "Would you enjoy coming on our podcast and kind of telling your story?" So here they are, Chase and Danny. Thank you guys for joining the JMU Sound Off.
How y'all doing?
So Danny, I'll tell. I don't want to jump at you because we'll get you in. But so Danny, tell us a little bit about. I know you drive by Bridgeforth Stadium.
Yeah, I work down in the valley there, all the way down to Salem, Roanoke area. We got an office in Roanoke. We got an office in Winchester, and I cover this whole area. I drive by every day. I mean, I'm in Harrisonburg 3 days a week sometimes, and I see the area. I mean, it's grown over 20 years. It was a little tiny thing, and I keep telling him that the best football in Virginia is right down the street from our house, and it is. It's right down the road. It's great.
So tell us about how Saturday's game tape. I know Taylor gave a little bit of a version of it, but how did you find yourself in Bridgeforth Stadium on a Saturday seeing this game against Georgia Southern?
Well, Chase has been wanting to go to a game. We wanted to take him, and I knew that it's 3 hours to go to Morgantown. Penn State's even farther. It's just Maryland's not a great product. I wanted to see a great product, and we wanted to see good football, and we wanted to have a good experience with it. The tailgate, we wanted to give them the whole experience of the game, and with some great seats at that. And we got affordable seats at that, and we ended up sitting in the best section of the stadium. Everybody welcomed us, and like I say, the seats were great, the crowd was great, the fans great. Everybody welcomed us, and he got exactly out of it what we wanted. And I hope he's a fan for life. I think I acted more like a kid than I have in years, of jumping up and down. My wife was laughing at me because I was screaming and hollering. I don't get to enjoy many games as a fan, and I really enjoyed myself yesterday.
So, Chase, I would love to hear from you. Tell me about some of your favorite things yesterday, and then talk a little bit about how you became such a JMU fan.
So I started liking them last year, and then I drove by it, and I started liking the color of it and their logo, so I started liking them.
That's because you're a Baltimore Ravens fan too, so purple's in your blood, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what were some of the favorite things of yesterday. I know you had some streamers in your hand. You were covered in them at one point because JMU was scoring so much. Tell me about what some of your favorite things that happened yesterday.
Yeah. So man, you got gloves?
I got gloves. Glove from number 52.
Oh wow!
And then I got towel.
So
awesome.
one of the players came up to you and gave it to you after the game.
Yeah, we got to go out front. We went out front. One of them gave it to her during the game, and then after the game, we went out front, and all the players came out, and they were just welcome as could be. I mean, it was great.
Chase, you were bringing energy to that section. I mean, I know you were technically in the row in front of me, but I think you were covering 3 or 4 rows front and back behind us, going all over the place. I mean, you just seem to be having a great time. At one point, I think you were standing on the railing, just leading the crowd in a chant. So we really enjoyed meeting you. Is there anything else you want to kind of say about your game day experience and the fun you had?
Go Dukes.
Amen. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on tonight. We enjoyed meeting you. We're
Thanks
looking
for
forward to
having
getting
us.
you back, and we'll definitely stay in touch because we want to get you back for a football game and also bring you maybe to a basketball game at
Basketball is definitely on the ticket. I'm a basketball guy, so.
And,
Awesome,
and Jason, Danny, we got to get you to text us your address because we'll make sure you guys, at least in time for the holidays, get some sound off shirts as well. So we've got some
wonderful. We appreciate it, and we know next time we come, we know what section to sit in.
And that's our commitment. So now you know the next time you come to Bridgeforth, you're going to just text us now for tickets. So you're not even.
We'll have to find out where the tailgate is. We're a little far away for that, so
we got you.
We'll get you in.
That's what we'll look for next time. Also,
awesome.
We got a game back home in 2 weeks. We'll get you back in and get you some tailgate
we would love
stuff.
to come back. We'll come back down again for sure.
Love it.
Yeah, but Marshall's a little far. It's 3 hours, 4 hours for us. It's
come on, get your dad to take you. We're going. Get your dad to take you up to Marshall.
That's what's going to happen. I'll end up taking a day off work just right now.
He can go to school another time. School's overrated. Come on, go to the football.
It's a holiday for the NCAA basketball tournament in our house. So
well, guys,
if you like basketball, we take the first 2 days of the tournament off school and work, and it's a holiday.
There you go. Well, guys, just know that you're always welcome, and I think you really are illustration of the growth of this fan base, and I hope if the JMU marketing and ticket staff and the guys who are behind the advertising for JMU, you have a really a testimonial here of the broader reach of the efforts that are happening for JMU. So Chase and Danny, thanks again, and we'll get you on again sometime in the future, but we really appreciate you sharing some time with us, and thanks for becoming part of our fan base as it grows as we move into this FBF era.
Thanks for having us. Go Dukes.
Awesome conversation with that. So we will transition to bringing on somebody who does not need an introduction, especially if you're following any level of JMU athletics. Dave Riggert. Before I bring him on camera, there was a lot of questions around the JMU community when Dave Thomas left JMU to move on to move him down to North Carolina. I know he's now in Minnesota. It's in the land of hockey now. So, but JMU has been blessed over the years with some amazing voices from Mike Schickman, Kurt Dudley, Dave Thomas, who made the position his own, and Dave Riggert has come in every sense of the word, and not only been first class in his calls and his engagement in terms of media, but his responsiveness and his interaction with fans has matched and in many ways continued that steady trajectory that I know Dave Thomas said he thought would happen when Dave came into the role. So we wanted to bring in Dave on the podcast for the first time, and Dave, as somebody who's interacted with you in my professional capacity with the Red Cross, I just want to say thank you because you've shown that same level of professionalism and that openness to doing everything you can to support the community in the Valley. But your work on the air has been first class from day one. So thanks for taking a few minutes to join us. But right off the bat, before we get into your thoughts on the season and the game, just tell us about what the transition. I know it's been a couple of seasons now and you've made this position your own. What has that transition being like? Because I know you said you wanted to get into calling kind of Division I football and Division I athletics. Has the position been everything you thought it would be and more?
Yeah, it's been more. There's no doubt about that. It was a whirlwind when it first started, just because of when Dave decided that he was going to step away and go back down to North Carolina. So the season was about to begin, and it was a whirlwind for a couple weeks. I moved out here before the family would even come out here until about Christmas time. So I was out here living on my own with Chris Brooks for a while from JMU. So, but I didn't know a ton about James Madison. I knew they were good. I knew they were a good FCS program. But the summer before, that's when the softball team made it to the College World Series, and we were sitting there watching, and obviously that kind of got JMU on the map nationwide. And they played Missouri. I was working just north of Kansas City in that state, and they played the University of Missouri. And we were kind of pulling for JMU at that time, and obviously they made it to the College World Series and did what they did. And then all of a sudden, this job comes open, and did a lot of research and found out a lot about the fan base and everything like that. And it's been more than advertised. It's been a blessing. It's been so much fun. And I think it was a couple weeks into the job, after I did a couple games, and I think I was out shopping trying to get some more JMU gear, and one of the owners was just like, "You're the new radio guy, right?" And I was just like, "Yeah." He's just like, "So like you get pretty excited for games and plays and stuff. Is that all kind of made up? Is that fake since you're new?" And I'm just like, "No, it's not new. I don't know that I can fake what I do." When I start to get engaged with the team, the players, get to know the players like I do on a personal basis, man, I'm their biggest fan. I'm in the booth, and I'm pulling for those guys as much as anybody. So I become a huge fan too, and I think that shows on the air as well. But no, it's been an unbelievable couple of years, and I can't believe it started my third season doing this. But JMU Nation's been awesome, and they've had my back the entire time, and it's been a ton of fun.
Dave, walk us through a typical week, especially during football season. So we had the game yesterday. After the game, you get some post-game comments from the team and the coaches. So what does take away from the fact that we have a Thursday night game? If we were to have a Saturday game this week, what would a typical week from the end of a game on Saturday to the next Saturday look like for you in terms of your job coverage? I know you do a podcast. Kind of walk us through that.
Well, things are a little bit different this week. You're right, because of the Thursday game. Heck, Friday night, I was sitting at home. We were watching TV, and I'm actually doing Marshall prep Friday night before the Georgia Southern game just to kind of get ahead a little bit. Normally wouldn't do that, but did this week. But no, it's Sunday's kind of a time to get the interviews out from the night before, from the Saturday game. I cut up all the highlights, listen back to my game to critique myself, and just kind of try and catch things that if I say something over and over, and try and make myself better. You can always get better no matter what. And so I cut up the game and cut up the highlights, put out all that type of stuff. And then, I'm actually not employed by James Madison. I work at Harrisonburg Radio Group, and so I'm an employee there. So I have daily duties there. I have a daily talk show that I have from noon to 1 every day on ESPN Harrisonburg, where I do a lot of stuff with JMU, and EMU in Harrisonburg, Bridgewater College, and some of the high schools in the area as well. So there's a lot of that takes place also. But then obviously Coach Signetti, and the media availability is a big part of getting ready for the next game. He's got his Sunbelt media call on Monday. He's got his press conference Tuesday. Tuesday's usually when I get out to practice for sure. Try and get out a couple times a week if I can, just to see practice, see what's going on, see some tendencies that they're doing maybe for that week and that opponent, and learn more about the opponent as well. And then, there's a lot of time just prepping for games. I take a lot of pride in my prep work to be as prepared as possible. I'm probably over prepare, but I'm always going to do that. Always going to have as much stuff as possible. Getting depth charts and stats and numbers and everything like that, sifting through all that information to get that ready. So I'm usually up pretty late at night, every night, doing something for the game. Whether I need it or not, most of the time I probably don't, but I know it's there and I have it if I need it. So it's the weeks are pretty consistent as far as I kind of want to get this done at this time, that done at that time, and everything like that. So this week obviously is a lot different, but there's a ton of prep work that goes on. But that's what I love about the job, is preparing for the games and getting to know. I obviously know our team very well, but still try and get as much as I can and learn more about every guy. When I do interviews on Tuesday, I try and get a couple extra guys every single week just to know more about our guys too. And then dive into the team obviously also.
Yeah, no, Jonathan will give the shout out to you at the end about people following you, because if the JMU Nation's not following Dave, you're missing out on unbelievable interviews. The interviews this past, and they're always good, but the interviews this past week with Tayson, with Trent Hendrick, I mean, they were unbelievable. And my
Those guys
question
were great
is,
this week. They were awesome.
how do you get them so comfortable? Because at 18, 19, I know Lottie's older, but not that much older.
Right.
And if it's 22, 23 years old, I don't remember that I would be able to be as comfortable. And you seem to be able to get them to relax enough that they really open up. And those interviews are really deep. And I just want to know how do you do that?
One thing is just trying to get on a one-on-one basis with these guys, where they kind of look at me as a friend, someone that they can trust. And that's not easy to do in the media. But they know I'm with the team all the time. I can be at every practice if I want to be there. They kick the rest of the media out. I can be there because I have trust with the coaching staff. I have trust with everybody involved at JMU. And that's something that I had to build up a little bit. There's no doubt. I mean, obviously Dave had it before and Mike before that, but it didn't take long to get that just because of I think how hard I worked at the job that I do. And they saw what I bring to the table. So I think it's a big trust factor, because even Tyson, during the interview that I did with him, he said, man, I just came from the press conference room and I did not like that. The cameras, the lights, the people all sitting around. He goes, I like the one-on-one better. And I can usually get better stuff one-on-one, but I think just getting to know them on a personal level. And every time I sit down with those guys, and some are good, some are bad. And a lot of guys have gotten so much better over the years, but I just want to tell them, hey, this is a conversation. This is just relax. It's just me and you talking. It's not a media member asking you questions and trying to grill you. And they know I'm not going to ask something that they can't answer. The coaches know I'm not going to ask something that they can't answer. I'm not going to dive into something that they don't want to talk about or they can't answer. So I try and get into their backgrounds, and that makes them very comfortable also. Talking about their family, something like that, something that's been either something hard in their life that they've overcome or something that's been really good where they can kind of just relax and, okay, this is a conversation. Now I can trust him. I can open up to him a little bit more. So I've always kind of had that ability. I think it's something that has been a strength of mine throughout my career. But Trent and Tyson were unbelievable this week. They were. If you haven't listened to those guys, go back and listen because they were great. And there's so many great guys on this team. That's the one thing. This coaching staff has recruited just awesome dudes. They really are. They're very respectful. And I love to just sit down one-on-one with these guys and get to know them. And that's why I think why these interviews are really good.
I mean, Jordan was outstanding yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, I was so glad to hear him and KB talk about each other and the way you drew them out and the way that you know, and it's natural because it's who you are. But I thought it was fantastic the way that those guys just support each other. It's not made up. I know coaches say a lot of coach speak about we're a team and we're a family. These guys really do support, and you can hear it. It's genuine stuff. It's not fake.
That's the one thing that I've found out since coming to this program, because I've been at some other programs and just this program in general, especially the last couple of years. Not that the first year was bad or anything, but the guys are so connected. And I've used that word a ton the last 2 years, but they wouldn't be 14-3 at the FBS level if they weren't connected. And they are. They support each other. The offense supports the defense. They pick each other up. That's the one thing, just the relationships that they have. And even if it's a transfer, even if it's Todd Centeno for 1 year, if it's Jordan McLeod for 1 year, if it's whoever it is, Tyson Lawton, Jeremy Cromoff for a couple of years, all these guys come in and feel comfortable. They make them feel comfortable and treat them like they've been here and been in this program for a long time. And the culture that was built before Coach Cignetti got here, but he's continued and elevated, it's so unbelievable to see the connection that these guys have on and off the field.
And Dave, before we get to the next question, there have been a number of viewer comments coming in, and I'll take this one right off the bat. Emily wants to know, how can she listen to these interviews online? Maybe if there's somebody who's not on necessarily Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, where can they find your weekly conversations?
Twitter's the easiest place. X, I guess, is what we want to call it now. But just Dave Riggert is my handle. You can go there, and they're all on there. The ESPN Harrisonburg SoundCloud account also has it as well. So just if you go on SoundCloud, you can search ESPN Harrisonburg, and that's got all the interviews. It's got JMU interviews. It's got Bridgewater College. It's got a ton of interviews on there, but all the interviews from the past game, different highlights and things like that is always on there as well. So Twitter is the easiest place, but the ESPN Harrisonburg SoundCloud is a place too. You can get it.
So, Dave, now transitioning to the season at hand, we're at the halfway point. Wanted to get your thoughts just first of all yesterday on a statement win for JMU. We talked off the top our thoughts. What did you see from your bird's eye perspective yesterday from JMU? Any way you want to take it in terms of a win that even people out there thought we might win this game. We said in the beginning show we didn't hear anybody think you were going to be 41-13.
No, I was not in that boat. I did not think it'd be 41-13. This one had me nervous just because of their style of offense is dangerous. And we saw, heck, if they wouldn't have thrown 5 interceptions against Wisconsin, they might have beat Wisconsin earlier this year. They're that good. I mean, they were 4-1. They beat Coastal Carolina handily. Their defense was the biggest improvement coming in. And for our offense, that was the number one scoring defense in the Sun Belt. And I think they were 4th overall in total defense, but they were much improved. They only had 2 starters back from last year, but they have a ton of transfers. They've got a new coordinator, a new scheme, and they've done a really, really good job taking the football away. And I think that's something that not many people have talked about. the offense didn't give the football away. And obviously they had 3 interceptions and got the football from Georgia Southern, which was huge. But I talked to Clay Helton last week for my pregame show, and he said they wanted to bring a defensive scheme that matched and married their offense. And that's a defense that is aggressive and takes the football away. And they were able to turn the teams over the last couple of weeks. Heck, Grayson McCall had 4 interceptions their previous game that they played. And Jordan McLeod is really playing. You guys were talking about that earlier. He's playing at a really high level. He has 3 straight games now of at least 3 touchdowns or more. He's done 10 TDs in his last 3 games, and he is on a trajectory that is very, very. It's. I think it's going higher and faster than I thought it would. And I also want to give him a ton of credit because he didn't win the job coming out of fall camp. And I asked him that when I talked to him on post game yesterday. I asked him if that was challenging. He said, "Yeah, it was." And a veteran that's a 1-year guy that comes in from Arizona thinks he's got the job, right? I mean, he thought he had the job. Alonzo Barnett beat him out. So give Alonzo a ton of credit, but give Jordan even more credit for staying ready and not pouting, not sulking in the corner, and continuing to work and get better. And then when he came in against Bucknell, the opening game, he played great. And then it has continued, and it's starting to become his team. You can see it on the field. It's starting to become his team. He's looking more comfortable. He's standing in the pocket, taking hits and delivering the football on 3rd and 4th down. Like Steve was talking about some of the plays, he was taking shots on 3rd and 4th down, hanging in the pocket and finding Elijah and Reggie and those guys. So his trajectory has been unbelievable. It's really good. He's taking care of the football. Again, he had 2 picks against Utah State to help them get back in the game. But other than that, he has been really, really careful with the football. And this team has been. And when they're very good. And for them to be as consistent offensively yesterday, it was so good to see. Off the bye week, you could see improvements. They were looking for a complete game. We've seen glimpses this entire year of the offense for a couple quarters playing really well. And then they go stagnant for 15 minutes or 4 drives or whatever it is. They were one of the top teams in the country in 3 and outs. That's a stat you don't want to have. They didn't have any 3 and outs yesterday until late. So they were very consistent, very sharp. And against that defense that had been playing really well, that was impressive. And obviously the defensive line is they are unbelievable right now. Those guys are playing at such a high level. And the one thing that's so great about those guys, they don't have a ton of depth up there. And that's the one concern I have with the defense. They don't have a ton of defensive line depth at the end or the defensive tackle spot. But those guys are playing so many snaps and playing so well, so consistent right now. They just continue to dominate. Teams can't run the ball. Teams stop running the ball. And they lead the country in sacks right now. It's been pretty unbelievable. But that win, that was a statement win. That's a really good football team that's probably going to win 8 or 9 games, I think, 8 and 4, 9 and 3. I think they will. And to win 41-13 and have them really never be in the football game was pretty incredible.
To make a quick point to what you just said, you talked about how our defensive line is missing some depth. We've been leading the country in rush defense. We've been missing our 2 starting linebackers, who Coach Signetti said were 2 of the best players on the team early in the year. And we've just, I know it's so cliche to say sometimes, but that next man up mentality seems to be such a signature of Coach Signetti coached football teams. You've seen it out throughout his time here at JMU with guys that coming up the next season, you said, well, I don't know if this person can replicate what we saw last year. So I just want to make that point before moving on to my next, which is kind of as we look ahead to Marshall. You mentioned that you had already started to do some prep work on Marshall and see how that matchup is going to be. I am in a text thread with a guy who is a former colleague at JMU, but he's a Marshall grad. And, he's been kind of giving me the Marshall fan perspective of how they're feeling. It doesn't seem like he feels great. I don't know if he represents the entire Marshall fan base, but one statistic he sent me that I thought was interesting was the Coach Huff at Marshall, that his record against FBS opponents is 16-12, and his record against teams with a winning record is 2-9. And so I think that can be one of those statistics that doesn't really play into a week in, week out. But with some of the prep work that you've seen for Marshall and how we match up, and especially the last couple of games leading into this game, what are you seeing in the matchup between JMU and Marshall, both the things that you think that we should be successful in and maybe some areas where we're going to really need to play our A game to be successful?
Well, the one thing with their defense, they were phenomenal defensively a year ago, but they lost a lot of guys off last year's team. They've got a first-team all-conference corner in Micah Andrews, and then they've got a first team defensive end, and Owen Porter, who dominated us a year ago. He was dominant in that game at Bridgeport. But they've got those two. Other than that, Eli Neal's a starting linebacker that they have, but they don't have a ton of guys back from that great defense a year ago. So they're replacing a lot of guys, and they are one of the worst rush defensive teams in the Sun Belt. They are toward the very bottom, if not the bottom, of the Sun Belt right now in rush defense, which surprises me from that team because they were really good at stopping the run a year ago. They've been pretty good against the pass, but that's some of the teams that they played also so far this year. But they've been really, really bad against the run. So the Dukes, I think they still have a lot left in the tank running the football. They've been okay. But not great. Yesterday, they averaged 5 points, about 5.2 yards per carry, which they'll take that. They only ran the football 23 times. But I think this is a game where maybe they can establish the run game a little bit more. They've thrown a lot early to kind of open things up offensively. But I think this could be a game where they could really get after Marshall with their offensive line. They only have one defensive lineman back from a year ago. Eli Neal, their starting linebacker, was hurt in yesterday's game, so he may not be able to play Thursday. Jacorian Anderson, another linebacker for them, was also hurt. So they may be a little light at the linebacker spot, which obviously those are two of their veteran guys on that side of the football. So I really think our offense, if it stays consistent and can really run the football and establish their identity and kind of dictate what they want to do to this Marshall defense, which was really good a year ago, but they're missing a lot of guys, and they've really struggled at times, giving up over 40 points yesterday to Georgia State. And then offensively, I think they're still kind of finding themselves. Rasheen Ali is obviously a talented running back, one of the best in the conference. But I think we've seen what JMU has done to really talented running backs. LaDamian Webb from South Alabama, 27 yards. Vidal from Troy, he had 21 yards. So those two guys have combined for under 50 yards, and those are two of the top running backs in the conference. Now we're going to see another one, and Rasheen Ali obviously leads the country in touchdowns as well. But if they can contain him, make them one-dimensional, Cam Fancher we saw him a year ago make his first career start at Bridgeport, and he was okay. He played better as the game went on and then played well at the end of the season. But I think they're a little sketchy offensively and just trying to find themselves. They've got some limitations offensively where I think we can really take advantage of getting after the quarterback, getting after Fancher. If the Dukes can shut down the run game, I really don't think that Marshall can throw the football like other teams can against JMU's defense.
And Ali got hurt last night again. So he was out a big chunk of the second quarter and got his ankle taped up and then made an unbelievable catch.
He did
in that game. And Fancher got just beat up. I mean, they crushed him. I mean, I think he's impressive, but we've heard about impressive QBs and we've heard about impressive running backs, and none of them made an impact on us, and they won't Thursday night. That this one has scared me. That this is the game that I had on my calendar as being,
I agree,
the suspect one, because the Thursday night short time. But the more Huff complains, and he continues to complain, and he complained last night, and they kept talking about it in the Georgia State game about, I can't believe we have such a short time and we have the 7:00 game. And if that's the mentality you're bleeding over to your team, you've already lost the game. Yeah. If that's what you're already talking about on a Friday and Saturday about how this is unfair, I mean, my God, and they're already tweeting out today. The fans are, please come to the game. Don't give up on this team. Yeah. They've only lost 2 games. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm trying to get the JMU Nation to show up. I want us to bring 1,000, 2,000 people, whatever we can. It'd be a blast. But the question I have for you has to deal with what you had a great interview of Keith Gill yesterday. And I get most of my insight from Dave Riggert. I'm telling you guys, I listen to all of Dave's stuff because I listen to what's going on with Bridgewater because it's mostly JMU alums that are the coaches over there. Right. So Scott Lim is the head coach. So I'm always wanting to know what's going on. But you talked to Commissioner Gill, and he gave an interesting answer. So the question that Dave asked him, and I may get it wrong, so correct me, but it was something about the New York Six Bowl and what are the chances that, JMU can play. And I'll let you kind of give what the answer was from Commissioner Gill, but it was a little eye-opening for me. So I'll let you go ahead and chat about it.
Well, and I'll even start with what I talked to him, because I asked him pretty much the same question at the Sun Belt Media Days before the season began in late July. And I asked him, just a scenario, and this one was before the season, and I didn't think there would be a chance, but hey, there's always a chance. And I asked him just a scenario: if JMU was 11-1, 12-0, undefeated in the Sun Belt, something like that, is there a possibility that they could play in the Sun Belt Championship? Just because the champion of the Sun Belt, especially if they're undefeated, probably is going to play in a New Year's Six game. And he said then that he kind of left the door open and said, there's always a chance, And so I think Coach Signetti actually they asked for the audio from that, and they've used that with the team to be like, hey, there's a chance that this could happen. Now, again, I asked him yesterday, and this was the Dukes were on their way to being 6-0, so halfway to an undefeated regular season, and he he changed his comments a little bit, and he left it to the members. He said that would be a membership question, and they would have to vote on that. He said it was not up to him. It's not up to the commissioner to determine if they could play for the championship and have a waiver or whatever it is, however they go about doing that. It would be a membership vote. So all the other schools in the Sun Belt would likely have to vote to allow James Madison to play in the Sun Belt Championship. And again, you can kind of read between the lines with that. And obviously, everybody has an opinion on what the member institutions would do. But if they were 12-0, if they were undefeated, and they had a chance at New Year's Six Bowl, that would also mean a lot of money for all of these schools in the Sun Belt as well. So who knows? Coach Signetti keeps saying that, common sense will prevail and that will happen. Will it? I don't know. We'll see. But again, it's probably up to the members right now to vote if JMU continues to win. And again, there's a lot of football to be played.
Well, Dave, again, thank you seriously for taking some time on a Sunday, especially on a short week. We give every guest the opportunity to plug if there's something coming up that they want people who are watching this podcast to know about. Short week for you and your coverage as well. What do you have planned for fans this week leading up to the Marshall game?
It'll be a little bit shorter because we won't get any player availability this week. And I don't think Coach Signetti is going to have a press conference this week. Everything's going to be a little bit limited just with the short week and them traveling on Wednesday. So there probably won't be quite as much content this week as there normally is. But you can always check out my Twitter at Dave Riggert. Always check out ESPNHarrisonburg.com. My daily show is on ESPN Harrisonburg, and we just started streaming that a while back, which has been great. It wasn't streamed for the longest time. Again, there's a lot of finances involved with ESPN and everything like that, but finally able to do that. So noon to 1 every weekday, I have a daily talk show, and it's all locally based. I'm not doing anything national. Everybody else can talk about that. We're talking JMU a ton. And again, I'll be talking JMU football today. But I've got Lawrence Steinbrecher, the volleyball coach of the Dukes, on. I talked to Kathy Morgan, the field hockey coach. I talked to both soccer coaches as well. And we'll talk to the basketball coaches, softball, baseball, all the sports. I've got great relationships with all the coaches. They come on every single week to talk about their programs. And obviously, all of them are doing very, very well. So that's something that if you're a JMU fan, you can listen online, and I put out all those interviews as well. Go to the SoundCloud account, ESPN Harrisonburg. But those are the best ways to do it. But looking forward to this week. It's a short week, but hey, we all love games, don't we? So it'll be just come a little bit sooner this week when the Dukes travel to Marshall.
Awesome. Well, Dave, again, our thanks and gratitude for each and every day for what you do for JMU. I as somebody who dabbles in broadcasting, I know how hard that you make it sound simple, the prep work for this. It's not. I have a feeling you're probably similar to Corey Spector, and you have notepads stacked on top of notepads. It's laid out professionally if anybody ever gets to see what a broadcaster's charts look like. But you give us things to talk about each week, and you give us ways to kind of maybe escape from the realities of the world. And I'm always very keenly focused on what it takes to make that happen. It's not easy, especially in this media landscape. So on behalf of everybody at Sound Off, thank you. We're your biggest fans. We continue to look forward to following your work, not throughout just football season, but as you go into basketball season as well. So we hope to definitely have you back. And just thanks for being so responsive. It matters to fans. And I think that's why you've been so successful in this role, is because you took the baton from Dave and have just kept going. So thanks again on behalf of all of us.
Absolutely, guys. I appreciate it. Love what you guys are doing as well. Anytime you need me, let me know. I'll be available for you.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Dave, and we'll see you up and safe travels up to Hunnington.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. And with that, we're going to get to our final guest. If you're a fan of JMU Sound Off, one thing we have done from our first ever episode on Twitter Spaces is talk about the need to grow the donor base for JMU, because all the success we're having on the field, all the success in terms of continuing to have great facilities on campus come because of support from donors here in the Harrisonburg community and in the broader JMU landscape of fans who continue to support our university. And we did want to give a shout out. We had some people stop us at tailgates. We put out a call to increase support for the Duke Club in our last episode when we had on the Scooter from the JMU Duke Club and talk about the importance of supporting that. I know one of the first things Cliff will probably says when he comes on is, before you make a gift to the collective, make sure you make a gift to the Duke Club. I know, Taylor, you had people stop you at the tailgates, so they made donations. I know, Steve, you had, and I heard the same from some people in my neighborhood who said, I forgot. So that's important. If you're listening to this, JMU 6-0. This is kind of a moment that's rare, that you're not only getting this national attention because it doesn't happen every season. I know we're used to it at the FCS level, but at the FBS level, this is a big thing. If you're not a Duke Club member, please make that contribution to the JMU Duke Club. You can do so on the Duke Club's website at jmudukeclub.com. You can find them on jmusports.com. Make that contribution because we all want to see new things at Bridgeport. We want to see the other side done potentially. Somebody said to me yesterday, I wonder if we could get one of those stringer banners on the other side of the stadium. All that stuff costs money. As Steve says, there's no magic pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, although it may seem like it sometimes. So if you're somebody out there, please make that contribution. Every little bit counts. If you're somebody who can make a big contribution, that counts too. But if you have a little extra, our next guest can help you make that the most of it in terms of supporting student athletes. So Cliff, thanks for coming on again to Sound Off. I wanted to get from you kind of where we stand at the halfway point of the season. I know we launched in August. There were some private conversations happening before, but when we had some initial conversations and putting out social media and things, how has the growth of the collective been so far? And what would you like fans to know at this moment in time where we're getting all of this national attention? Where does the collective stand?
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me on. I wish I didn't have to follow Dave. That's a lot of energy to try to match. He's an awesome guy. We're excited, but for us, it's more close to the end of our season. So as you look at what we're trying to do, we're very excited about the team being 6-0 for football. Obviously we don't just support football, we support all of our sports, but let's use football as the example. We're going to have to start working on our contracts for next year right now. So, the members of the board and I will look at different players based on the amount of money that we're collecting on how many players that we can add for next year. And we'll start making contract offers here over the next few weeks. The reason we have to do that right now is because the portal opens pretty much right after our Coastal Carolina game. It opens right there in December. There's been a lot of changes with the NCAA. They're going to shrink the portal in the fall to 30 days. But, we need to let these kids know ahead of time. We can't just wait for the portal to open. That we have some interest that we'd certainly like to sign them on. So while it's great that we're 6-0, it also makes all our kids a bigger target for Power 5 schools to come in. We've lost at least one player every year since this has started happening since we moved up. So ideally, we won't lose anybody. But as you guys know, it's a very competitive environment out there. So the more money we can raise, the more student athletes we can make offers to and hopefully retain.
Cliff, I know those of us on here who, we eat, sleep, and breathe JMU sports and college sports in general. We're fairly familiar with NIL and the concept, but one thing that occurred to me today was having a conversation with some season ticket holders that live in our neighborhood, and was talking about what guests we were going to have on today. And as I was bringing up NIL, even they were they're season ticket holders. They're involved. They said, NIL. Can you remind me exactly what that is again? So really, for everyone listening, give a quick summary of what is NIL. And also for those who do know what it is, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about what the Montpelier Collective is doing?
Sure. NIL stands for name, image, and likeness. And it was started a few years ago because a lot of, especially Power 5, these schools make a lot of money off the backs of these student athletes. They were selling jerseys with their number, their name. And they're student athletes because of the way the NCAA wanted to keep them in a quote unquote amateur status. The kids weren't allowed to get any of that money. So then the NCAA started losing some lawsuits, I guess is the best way to say it. And then really back down. So they changed and said, well, you can make money off of your name, image, and likeness. And I think what they meant was if there are things like jerseys and things being sold, you can certainly make money off of that. But immediately some of the bigger schools kind of went to a pay for play where a lot of these big student athletes, even coming out of high school, they were getting fairly large offers and deals to go to some of these schools. I don't think that was the intent of the rule, but because there's not a ton of legislation around it, that was how it was being handled at some of those schools. I'll just say it that way. So we knew that, look, it's within the rules. It's something that a few of us got together and said, this is something, because it's within the rules, that we need to pay attention to. We did a lot of research. And when we decided to get in that game, we said, let's make it something that feels like JMU. So let's make part of what we do giving back to the local community. So if we're going to sign student athletes, part of our contract or our stipend that we pay them includes doing community service hours. And we've had some really good partners with the Food Bank, the Red Cross, the United Way, and we're still looking to grow those. And the kids have been excited to do it, and we've been excited to get them involved. But it's complicated and it's very hard. Somebody 2 weeks ago stopped me at a wedding. There's a DJ playing. Can you real quickly explain NIL to me? And no, I can't real quickly explain it. It's very difficult to explain. It feels weird because, when you're like my age or Steve's age, that was taboo. You just didn't have things like that where athletes like that would get paid. So we pay the student athletes a stipend, and in return they do community service. When they're finished, they get their final payment.
And Steve,
So
let me
can you-
jump in on, Steve, can I jump in on one point? Because as somebody who day job is to work for the Red Cross, what does that look like for a nonprofit like the Red Cross? I can tell you firsthand what it looks like. We had athletes from multiple teams at JMU putting out really important messages to the Red Cross during Sickle Cell Awareness Month, and the importance during a national blood shortage. We had a blood drive on campus. That was the most successful blood drive that we've had in over a year at JMU. And those student athletes made awareness to their peers and are going to be continuing to do that as we go throughout the season, continuing to push people towards the blood drives that happen on campus. That not only has an immediate impact on the blood supply in the local Harrisonburg community and the state of Virginia as a whole, but we know from a fact as an organization that when you become a blood donor once, you tend to be a blood donor for life. And those efforts cannot be minimized for what those student athletes have done for the Red Cross. And they've been excited. They've been passionate about it. And they've been the ones contacting me saying, hey, is there anything else that I can do? So it is having a big impact. And I think that is something that is unique about this collective's focus on making sure these student athletes are making those types of connections in the community. And I could say on behalf of one of those nonprofits, that's something we don't have the benefit of having on a regular basis. We are all trying to come up with creative ways to get our message to young people, get our message to students on campus. There's no substitute for that message coming from somebody that they know, who's their peer, and coming to them on channels they're all familiar with and they're using on a daily basis. So I did want to give credit to the collective for doing that, and then credit to those student athletes for not just checking a box. They've embraced it and they've done a really great service to the community. And this is just the start of what I think is a tradition that will continue as long as this NAL collective is engaged and the rules are the way they are. I give a lot of credit to JMU for doing it the right way. And Steve, your question now.
Sure. What size of donation are you looking for? I mean, I know a large donation would be great, but are we taking small donations, medium-sized donations, and when do you need it?
Well, how much do you have, Steve? We can talk offline.
Well, remember,
I can auction the cape. I got the cape back here.
Steve just volunteered to fly Tulane to a parking lot.
Trust me, I wrote that down. I'm going to do the math on that when they say no, and we'll take that as your next donation.
Yeah, I'll fly their stupid green wave ass up here. Anytime they want, I'll fly their
Maybe that's why Alice. Is that why Alice opened the door up behind you, Steve? Because she heard you offering to fly Tulane up?
I think
she took the dog and they're getting ready to leave.
Your wrestling promos are going to cost you some money.
Yeah, a lot of money.
That's a great question. We'll take any donation. I think anything that you can do. And John set it up perfectly. And I appreciate you guys having the Scooter on last week. And Taylor said this frustration too when he worked there. The biggest frustration I had when I worked with the Duke Club is the 6 or 7% of alumni that give back, and that's all that they do. And I think Scooter nailed it on the head. You walk around, you see such a beautiful campus, and you see such a beautiful stadium. Probably don't need any more money. If we're going to compete at this level and continue to compete at this level, not only do you need to give more than you gave last year. And I'm just talking to the Duke Club, right? And then, the way we're trying to position ourselves is that's your first donation. If we are lucky enough for you to have some extra money, then we would certainly like your next thought to be with the collective. But we will take any donation. We're running a kind of a promotion now. We're trying to get creative with getting people to donate. We're running a promotion now where we kind of designed a commemorative football highlighting the win over UVA. So for it's a limited edition. So anybody that gives $250 or more So 250 is minimum. So it doesn't mean you have to just give 250. You can give more. We'll get one of these footballs. Jake Kuntz, who's on our board of directors, did a really nice job getting this rolling and off the ground and designing it. You can see it on all our socials. You can see it on montpeliercollective.com. Just go to our website. If you make a donation of $250 or more, we will mail you one of these balls that you see on the screen right now. So you'll see as we continue to grow. I think John's point about the charities is great. That's what it's supposed to look like. And I think going forward, you'll see more creative things that we're going to do with our charities that we partner with. I think you're also going to see us be a little bit more creative with how we fundraise, because we have to raise a lot of money. We got started late last year. We're kind of hitting our stride now. We're running that promotion. The next event we're going to have is we're gonna hop on to the Duke Club's happy hour for homecoming at Hotel Madison on that Friday. And we'll start posting that pretty soon on our social media things. But again, it's back to Taylor's point. That's really just the table and talk to people about who we are, what we're about, why we're doing what we're doing, and how it does give back to the community.
And guys, JMU Nation, if you want to continue to see the product you see in all the fields that we're playing on and the courts, we've got to give to this. It's a retention bonus. So if you're like saying, "Oh, I don't want to do that," well, we pay our Olympic athletes. If you didn't know that, we do. If you want to continue to see this, it's legal. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's a retention bonus is really what it is. And if you want to keep those same athletes, at JMU, they love JMU, but at the end of the day, we've got to show them the same love. And we're making money off of them, so let's get some of them back in their pocket, and that's all we're trying to do. We're not trying to buy anybody. We're not trying to do something crazy, but honestly, they deserve it. So let's do what JMU does, and let's give to the collective so we can get it back to the student athlete.
And I want to make some comments that are personal to me. This might not apply to everyone, but I think it applies to more than some. I met my wife on a bus trip to a football game. We saw our buddy Brandon Sweeney yesterday. I was in his wedding only because we met at a tailgate. We were in the Student Duke Club. Some of my best friends are people that I've met in P-Lot, Student Duke Club. JMU Athletics helped start my career. I mean, it gave me the opportunity and the network for me to progress to where I am today. I just think of all the friendships. I think of all the meaningful times in my life that are so much more than just a football game. And so when I think about my giving to the Duke Club, my giving to the Montpelier Collective, I love winning and I love rubbing it in the face of our rivals when we do. But, what we're calling for with these donations to the Duke Club and Montpelier Collective, it's to continue to enjoy those Saturdays at Bridgeforth, and not just Saturdays at Bridgeforth, as Cliff was talking about. I mean, these are all the sports. Many of us still think back about the College Softball World Series run, the times where we've made the basketball tournament. I mean, our men's soccer team is continuing to dominate. I mean, we're in one of the best baseball conferences. I could name something great about every sport at JMU, but it's more than the wins and it's more than the bragging rights. I have so many meaningful relationships, both personally and professionally, because of JMU Athletics and what it's afforded me. And as we've mentioned earlier in this show, we're 6-0. We're just outside the top 25. I mean, we're ranked ahead of Clemson. If 2 or 3 years ago I told you, hey, I'm from the future, I know this might sound crazy, we're going to be ranked ahead of Clemson one day. Yeah, I could see it in 20 years. No. 2 or 3 years from now, we'll be ranked ahead of Clemson. No one would have thought it, and we're in a position to where we can make JMU a household name, not just on the football field, but across our athletic program and what that school can do academically. So I could probably go on another 5 or 10 minutes about this topic. I'm going to stop here. But when you're thinking about what you can give and what you should give, you're giving to something that is much bigger than sports. And I'll leave it at that.
Well, if you can, and I mentioned this last time Cliff was on, and we're going to look back on October 15th, 2023, 20 years from now. I'll be 80. Cliff will be a little younger. But we're going to look back on it, and I think we're going to say, I'm glad I was at the ground floor of what we did. Will we always be 6-0? No. Will we have down years? I'm sure. I don't know when. But I'd like for us as a university, if we can, and everybody, I think there's 2,500 of us out there that can give $100. I'll do it again. I'll give it another $100. I'm going to buy a football. I'm going to spend $500 on the football. But I want us to, if you can, and I'm not saying everybody can, but if we can get 2,500 of us to give $100, that's a ton of money we'll raise for the collective. And let's start thinking big. We always want to be big. We're interested in being big. We're loving all this. Let's act like it. And let's start putting some money into it, because everybody's going to be chirping and say, well, I want the other side of the stadium built. Okay. I want an indoor practice facility. Those two things you're talking about, that's $225 million to do. If you want to do that right, that's what it's going to cost. Perfectly fine to do, get it up to 45,000 people. Okay. But we've got to at least start to crawl first. So let's get these student athletes, let's get some money in their pockets. So please, reach in, do $100 if you can. Let's get 2,500 of us to start that seed money for the collective, to really get the collective where it needs to go. So I'm going to challenge you to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to ask you to, if you can.
Awesome. And Cliff, before we let you go, any last thoughts, and just give people one more opportunity to learn how they can actually engage with you and where they can find information about the collective.
Yep. You can see right under my name. That's our website, montpeliercollective.com. And look, this is a complex issue. I would love to talk to anybody that wants to talk to me about it. You can reach me right there. Just hit the contact us button. It's really just contact me. We have a staff of one answering that right now. But I'd love to talk to you about and explain why we're doing what we're doing, how we're trying to grow the collective, and really the changes that we've had to make even in the short time that we've been open for business. So anything you can do, as Steve said, we would appreciate. If you give us $250 or more, we'll get you that football while we still have some. We'll probably have another promotion coming up that I'm pretty excited about too. So we're going to be aggressive, and we're going to continue to try to grow. And again, I can't thank you guys enough. Please tell Michael I said congratulations. But thanks for your support. We really enjoy sponsoring Sound Off and appreciate all the good work you guys do.
Well, Cliff, before we let you go, I will say this. You're humble and not somebody that talks about what you do a lot in terms of the public role that you have in this, but there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, a lot of conversations, probably a little more stress than you'd like in your retirement. And some of these conversations are probably a little more challenging than you probably need to have, but that doesn't come from somebody who's not passionate about the university. It doesn't come from somebody who doesn't care. And if there's anybody out in the JMU landscape that questions what is happening on campus, a lot of what's happening that's in a positive way is because of the work of you and many of your friends and many of the people that you've helped to cultivate. And I just want to publicly thank you for that, because you don't have to do this. There's no one, requiring you to do this work, and it matters. And again, as Taylor said, if you're somebody out there who enjoys the feeling of a 41-13 win over Georgia Southern, you like seeing on Barstool and PFT commenter and these national podcasts and national media members saying how great your university is, so that when the next time you go in the grocery store and you're wearing a JMU shirt, somebody says, "Go Dukes," and they're happy about it. That doesn't happen by accident. And the more attention and the more focus, as Cliff said, that our student athletes get on campus, there are P5 programs, probably some 45 minutes from Harrisonburg and down to Blacksburg, who are saying, man, I'd like to have some players. I won't mention names because I don't want to give them the opportunity or get myself in trouble, but we can all probably think of some players on this roster that there are going to be P5 schools looking at. We need to have the resources to keep them. You can do that. You can make a direct impact on student athletes and the basketball programs and lacrosse and everything else. There's a lot of questions about where does my donation go? This, with the collective, there's a direct impact on your ability to have a good time on a Saturday or a good time in the winter or in the spring months. Make that mark, make your mark by helping the collective, and find out ways by visiting, again, MontpelierCollective.com. We'll continue to bang this drum, and you always have a platform and a forum here to get that message out, Cliff. So thanks again, as always.
Great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. And with that, we will get to our final thoughts segment, where we look at the game on, once again, Thursday night at Marshall. The three of us will be making the trip up to Hunnington, as well as Chandler Fortune, who's also going to be coming up. And I wanted to say, before we get into our final thoughts, we have some really big things planned for this week. We will be joining the Thundercast, which is a great podcast that covers Marshall University football, as well as Big Game Boomer and the CFB campus tour for some live streams. during the day on Thursday. We'll also be chronicling our trip up to Hunnington. So I hope you stay tuned to our social media accounts, because this is a really great opportunity to showcase a rivalry that we think is going to be really starting to develop between these two schools. Marshall knocks us off in year one, but these programs, we've had a lot. Pretty much, if you're somebody out there, you probably heard of Marshall from the We Are Marshall days, and really wanted to do everything in our capacity to make this a big production, so that we can kind of give you, if you're somebody who can't make it on a Thursday night, a little bit of a behind the scenes look of this rivalry. So stay tuned. Again, we'll be bringing you that coverage on Thursday, but I'll go first to Taylor, your final thoughts in terms of what was a great week this week, and what we're looking forward to in another nationally televised game on ESPN, and everything that comes with that on Thursday night.
We beat the Hail out of Southern. I'm looking forward to beating the Herd out of Marshall. That aside, Marshall historically has a lot of things known for it. I first remember my first memory of Marshall was 1998 when I was collecting football cards, and Randy Moss was a rookie card that it was highly sought after. Obviously, Chad Pennington,
My favorite NFL player of all time as a Jets fan.
And if you can watch We Are Marshall, probably one of the best sports movies ever. I mean, it's an incredible story. And if you're not familiar with the history of Marshall and the background of that movie, take a look into it. And it's neat that we're in a conference with them. Having said that, we're going to beat the Herd out of Marshall. I'm looking forward to that. Couple quick things from this week. We've talked about how JMU listens, and they always are trying to improve themselves on game day. One of the things that I loved this week was the 11 a.m. or the 1 hour before kickoff cannon to tell everyone to get in the stadium. I don't know if the people listening to this podcast are the ones that really need to hear this message. We talked about how great the atmosphere was on Saturday. It was. We talked about how well the students did. They did. But, folks, we got to get into that stadium earlier. I mean, when the team was running out of the tunnel, maybe half full at kickoff, maybe 2/3 full. It just, for as much as it meant to the players to run out in the second half and see a full stadium, it means just as much at the beginning of the game. I know the last two games may have been outliers. It was a noon game. I myself was pulling into Harrisonburg within an hour to kickoff, but I really would encourage everyone here, close down your tailgates, get into the stadium early. It's a great pregame that JMU puts on, so it's worthy of getting in there and enjoying that and just letting the team run out to a full stadium. One quick note that I thought was kind of a good recommendation that my neighbor that I spoke about earlier was talking about. I don't know how easy this is, and this is another thing that would cost money, but a couple more TVs in the concourse. We've talked about some of the lines in the concourse. He just mentioned, it'd be great to throw up a couple TVs in there so that when you're having to miss the game and in the concession line, it'd be good to be able to still be able to follow the game. And the only last thing I'll say, this doesn't really have anything to do with the game on Saturday or the game coming up Thursday. I'm just starting to get really concerned. We've had another college football Saturday. I cannot find the Conference USA football scores. It's been 22 days since I've last seen a Conference USA football score on college football Saturday. So if anyone out there, I'm worried. I'm a concerned peer conference and just looking out for all the teams in this country. And so if you guys can help me out, would really, really appreciate that.
You just love these Liberty fans coming after you. I'm telling you on Twitter, it's just nonstop. Steve Brown, the floor is yours, my friend.
All right, JMU Nation, I'm going to challenge a little Dusty Rhodes. If you don't know who that is, you'll figure it out. You can Google it. I'm going to even try to imitate his voice. There've been many times, JMU and Marshall, we've gone round and round, and we bled the same blood in the same mud. But this time, Marshall, it's about business, Jack. JMU and Marshall Thursday night, Daddy, in Huntington, West Virginia. JMU football rides in on the edge of a lightning bolt on a purple and gold saddle, Daddy. Bring your A game, Marshall, because JMU will. It's time to be 7-0 at 10:30 p.m. on Thursday night in Huntington, JMU. You don't have to like it, Marshall, but learn to love it because it's the best thing going.
I have no idea how to follow that, so I'll just do my job and end this broadcast. So thanks again to our guests today, Dave Riggert from the Harrisonburg Radio Network and the JMU Sports Network, as well as Chase and Danny for sharing their stories, first-time JMU fans, and Cliff Wood from the Montpelier Collective. Again, congratulations, Michael. We are so happy for you guys, and Courtney. We'll do a live broadcast from the wedding or something down the road. We'll make it. We'll sponsor the something in the wedding, but and
we may not
always,
get invited.
we may have, yeah. Hey, look, we got to start campaigning for that now. Also, want to thank those who came by and stopped us at the tailgates again this week. We saw some Sound Off merch in the stands this week. We saw some people who, again, just stopped us and said how much they're enjoying the show. Hey, guys, we do this because you keep listening. So we're putting the energy and time and effort to bring your product because you seem to enjoy it. And as long as you guys enjoy it, we're going to keep putting the energy and effort in. Thank you to Skyline Financial Partners. Great seeing you, Tim, as always, and the team there. We're going to be having them on our edition pre-homecoming to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves to you. To share a little more of the Skyline Financial story. And with that, please, again, stay tuned to our social media accounts at JMU Sound Off this week. Please follow our Instagram account. We're trying to do some more content there. So the more people that continue to follow us on that, we already put out the challenge. If we get to 1,000 Instagram followers, we're going to rent those wrestling suits. And then I guess we're really going to see the Steve Brown persona. So if you want to see that in live action at a tailgate coming up soon, help us get to 1,000 on Instagram. But with that, we'll see you this week on Thursday evening in Hunnington, West Virginia. Safe travels to all the Dukes who will make the trip. And with that, we'll have some live broadcasts there. And then we'll see you also next Sunday night for another edition of Sound Off. And with that, go Dukes. And we'll see you from Huntington, West Virginia, the Dukes and the Marshall Thundering Herd.